Your home can be more than just a home. It can be your own personal fitness retreat, a place where you break a sweat, break your personal record, or just get a break in the day. Johnson Fitness and Wellness is your partner in creating the perfect home gym. And now, enjoy up to 50% off top-rated treadmills, ellipticals starting at $5.99, and major discounts on strength equipment. Visit a local store or johnsonfitness.com. Your home gym is just a few steps away.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. Thank you for tuning in. I think Blog Talk Radio is having some issues with their clocks, but that's okay. We'll work with it. You're listening to Sunday Talks with Kellie and Lisa. We've been talking about money and how to work through your money stories to bring up and heal some of the issues you've had through your life with money. Today, we're going to start the show by talking about letting go. And I think that's something that was actually Lisa's topic. So we're going to say good morning, Lisa, and let you start with what you were going to talk about.
Good morning, Kellie. So good morning, everyone. You and I had a conversation this past week about the idea or the concept of burning bridges and how sometimes not burning those bridges can actually be more detrimental to us than if we just lit it on fire and celebrated like the 4th of July. And so, you hear don't burn those bridges. You might need them when, sometime in the future, but it wraps around back to letting go. And how do you know when a bridge is a good one to burn? And is it okay to burn all of our bridges? So I think that's where we're kind of going with that, because when you hold on to things from your past that cause you grief, anxiety, sadness, anger, and you haven't healed those underlying things, sometimes just cutting that cord is the best way to start healing, and you really don't necessarily need to wrap back to those particular experiences or, holding on to the person or the place or the job or the grocery market experience. You don't necessarily need to hold on to that for your future. There's so much out there, and it's so abundant that, that burning that bridge. Let me kind of go to where I was talking about with that, though. I burned a bridge and decided that recently I needed to put the raft together with the pieces of the bridge that were floating in the river, and I did, and I sailed back over to the other side, and well, it's not exactly the best experience right now that I'm working through, and so, this is where this topic came up and the anxiety that I'm feeling, the angst, the stuff that's coming up with this is causing a lot of blocks. So, yeah.
Right. Well, it's something that's really common that we as human beings do. We always want to think about, but this can be different. But this time can be different. And, people have, throughout my life, wondered how it was that I can chop people out of my life so easily and never speak to them again. And I think every time I hear someone who says, oh, my ex is my best friend now, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, I have said my exes are friends, but when I say friends, I mean we don't have any animosity between us. We don't hang out. We don't talk every day. There's a difference, and how that applies to money is in much the same way. If you have a job, and there was one in particular that every once in a while I still think about those people. I still think about the issues. I still care about, our clients, but I cannot revisit that. They would hire me back in an instant, and I know that. But why revisit the past when we should be moving forward? And when you're revisiting the past, whether it's through a job or a business associate or even an ex-boyfriend, girlfriend, ex-best friend, whatever that is. When you're revisiting the past and nothing has changed, you are setting yourself up for failure and you're holding yourself back. If you drive your car only looking through the rearview window or the rearview mirror, you're going to get in an accident. And that's kind of what we do to ourselves. So many people do what you were just mentioning. And it's not something that... Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, it's not something to beat yourself up about, is what I was going to say. It's understandable, right. And it's not something that you should dwell on and beat yourself up over. It's just a lesson. Anytime we go through life and something happens and we don't learn the lesson, guess what? It's going to keep happening until we've learned that lesson.
Exactly. And, at one time, it may have been something, maybe in smaller towns, this is still something that crops up. But at one time, when towns were smaller, when life was like Mayberry, when you needed those professional references because jobs were going to check who you worked for and get those professional references. And, your reputation, let's just say you like to do certain things that the town didn't think was something that you should do, and your reputation was at stake. It's a whole different world now, and it's a much larger world when those types of don't burn your bridges and, make sure that your nose is clean, because people are still going to talk about you. I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but it was a much tighter, smaller world. And yes, we're globally connected, and we're connected a lot faster now, but there are so many more people that we can connect to and so many more opportunities out there for us that we don't have to so much worry about those things as much as we used to. There are exceptions to the rule. If you're trying to become the CEO of a company, there might be something, that you need to continue to not burn those bridges until you get to that next place, and then you can burn those bridges. But, like you said, it's not something that you should beat yourself up for, and it's a much, much different world now, much larger. We have access to so many different things that we didn't in the past.
And that's true, but being someone who has moved repeatedly in my life, I can tell you that even in a small town, if you have decided that you have outgrown where you are, outgrown the opportunities for you, love yourself enough to move forward. And with me personally, I loved myself enough to move to an entirely different area. And I've done that a couple of times. I have had people say, how can you do that? Well, how can you not? You need to, throughout life, we grow, we change. I guarantee you I am not the same person I was as a child or even in my early adulthood. That person is long gone. And oftentimes we don't allow ourselves to move forward. We think, well, okay, this is an okay situation right now, and maybe I'm not completely happy, and maybe I'm not as fulfilled as I could be. But, I'm going to stay here because it's comfortable. And if you're always choosing comfort, and don't misunderstand, it's fine to do for a while. We all need rest periods too. But if time after time after time you're choosing comfort, when you know in your heart and your soul that there are bigger things you should be doing, you're selling yourself short. You are holding yourself back. And that's what a lot of people do monetarily. I've known so many people through the years who have taken jobs that they are so overqualified for, it hurts me that they're doing it. But they keep doing it because they don't have the confidence. They don't have the faith in themselves to say, I can do something bigger and better. And maybe that's great for them. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm comfortable right now. If you are comfortable where you are, I am not the person to tell you to move. It is not my job to make you the biggest and best version of yourself you can be. And I hate that phrase. But if there's a gnawing in your heart, if you are thinking or dreaming about doing something else, then honestly, you are really not comfortable where you're at. Your soul is trying to get you to grow. And when you grow and expand, you're going to grow and expand your experiences. You're going to grow and expand your love. And you're going to grow and expand your bank account. And that's just the way it works. You know, and when you're in a position, and Lisa and I were talking before the show, and I'm going to share something very personal. I have done animal rescue literally my entire life. And for 8 months, I have had a nonprofit corporation already set up, ready to go. I'm ready to solicit donations, except for I have not found the time to drive from my middle of nowhere house into town and open a bank account. Now, I've had the money probably, 30, 40 times, literally, to do that. And yet I haven't made that trip. So I'm telling you, even those of us who are seemingly further along on our path than our listeners, even we make ourselves stuck sometimes. Even we hold ourselves back. So don't think this is a one and done situation. You are on a journey. And you're going to have periods of time where you're just going like gangbusters and you're taking care of business and you're doing everything and money's starting to roll in. And then you're going to have a period of time where, hey, maybe it's not going so great. Or maybe there's something you should have done that you haven't done that's holding you back. That's normal. It's part of being human. Mm-hmm. We are not here to judge you. We are not here to say you can't do that, you've got to do this. That's not how this works. Everyone is on their own journey. But what we can give you are tips and tools and some advice that has worked time and time and time again. It still starts with you. Only you can decide what it is you're supposed to be doing. But it's a personal choice. But I can tell you, if you're limiting yourself in any area of your life, you are also limiting yourself financially. That is just the way it works.
I feel attacked.
I'm sorry.
I'm kidding. So, we've talked about this several times. You know my situation personally. I'm not sharing on air now. I will share in the future. But, I'm in a situation where there are times when I pick up the phone to call my support group and I feel like I am in absolute dire straits and I have to have people talk me off of the ledge of making a decision that is probably not rational at that moment or not the best one for me to do at that moment. And you had mentioned about your comfort zone. If your comfort zone is a place where you are able to, fill your purpose and live, your best life and still willing to grow and expand that's one thing. It's when that comfort zone actually becomes like quicksand and you're just stuck. Right. That's when the comfort zone is a terrible thing. And, sometimes you need to stay in that comfort zone while you're moving yourself around to get unstuck from that. For me personally, I am taking the actions that I need to take in order to pull myself out of the situation. And, my support group, y'all are amazing. Love, love, love everyone that holds space for me and sends me good vibes and love and light. And then those that are close to me who are just there to even just listen, no matter how irrational or crazy I might sound at the moment. But one of the things that I'm doing that is something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, moving forward to one of those dreams of mine, is I'm actually doing Mrs. Claus cosplay this winter, and I will be going to I have a couple of gigs lined up. I'm really super excited because they just kind of fell in my lap. It's like, I want to be Mrs. Claus. If there was a way I could marry a guy who is called Saint Nicholas, I would probably do that. But a little bit about me. So, I have a couple of gigs. They fell into my lap. I will be doing a reading at when I say reading, I'll be sitting down with children. We'll be decorating cookies, and they will have some stories read to them by Mrs. Claus. And I have, my apartment complex is letting me do it for a Christmas event. And then I will be at a homeless shelter reading to the children there while their parents are partaking in a gifting type of environment, and it's going to be 2 days. And I'm actually really looking forward to this. My biggest dream is to actually do this. If I could do it full time, I absolutely would. But to go into the community and do readings at homeless shelters, orphanages, hospitals, children's hospitals. And that's really what I want to focus on. I'll do Mrs. Claus for pet, like the Humane Society type of rescue endeavors, fundraisers, and things along those lines. That's really what I want to focus on, is giving back to the community. So I'm right there with you on that terrible thing. But I spoke it, and then all of a sudden now I'm going to be able to partake in something that I really want to do. It's something that I really, really, really want to do. And it's magical that I get to be Mrs. Claus and, for 3 different events and engage with children and teach them about hope and love and giving. And we're going to touch on diversity and how children around the world in different cultures celebrate what we here in the Western world know as Christmas. So, I'm really super excited about this. And it's just that's that little push towards my comfort zone, getting me out of the situation that I want to leave. And this is that pushing that bubble, pushing that boundary out just a little bit. And it's something small, but it's something that's also big at the same time. So.
And I think you just said it. Start small. When you can break out of your comfort zone that has swallowed you and do something small, that will lead to wonderful things. It's just a matter of doing them. So often we get stuck and we fool our mind. We fool ourselves. We think, oh, well, this is great. I'm right where I am supposed to be. And we've made that decision for ourselves to stay small. And you don't have to stay small, but it takes small steps to get out. It starts with just starting. Sometimes when we find a comfort zone after we've been stretched for a while, it's because, I honestly believe this, it's because the universe, source, Great Spirit, God, whatever name you want to use, has decided you need time to integrate those things you've learned before you can move on. Yeah. One of the things that I have personally found, working with many people through the years, with not necessarily money issues, but mostly life issues that surround money. And what I mean by that is, everyone thinks they're looking for money, and what they're looking for are those things that money can give them. But what I've found is they will make great strides in the direction they want to go in. And then all of a sudden there's a lull in the activity. And people would come to me and say, well, everything was going great, but, I've got nothing this week. Good. Be grateful for where you've come, the lessons you've learned, and what you're now about to embark on. Because if we kept going and going and going without giving ourselves time to integrate our lessons, we're going to end up forgetting, and we're going to end up in that vicious circle, that we've talked about before, where you, instead of having money, you end up living on credit cards, or you end up using credit cards for things you should have money for. And when you get a big influx of cash, you end up paying on all your credit cards and not saving money. That vicious cycle is how most Americans live.
Right.
And I'm telling you, you can stop that. You can get off the merry-go-round and do something different. But it starts with one step. And honestly, that one step in most cases is making that decision that you're going to do something different. Even if you are completely comfortable where you are at right now in life, you can make one small change. And that small change does not need to be external. It can be inside of you. And I will tell you, if that one small change is simply being grateful for your comfort, that's huge. We go through life and we just assume everything's going to keep going, and we don't really realize or accept that everything can change in the blink of an eye. So if you're comfortable where you're at, yay, be grateful for where you are. But a funny thing happens when you're grateful for where you are. If you are grateful for everything you have now, you figure out that you start getting more stuff. If you're grateful for having whatever amount you have in your bank, and you're really grateful for it, that money will start rising. Funny thing happens, opportunities show up out of nowhere. Things that you didn't even think of will be offered to you. But it starts with being grateful for where you're at. So when I tell you, being grateful can be quicksand, like we said. Like I think that was Lisa that said that. Know that it doesn't have to be that. You can be more. You can have more. But it does start with being grateful for everything you do have right now. What do you think, Lisa?
Well, that's the gray area that we talk about all the time. So my favorite, there's a couple of things I actually want to hit on, but my favorite is that ebb and flow, or that yin and yang. When you look at the yin-yang symbol, you see the black with the white circle and the white with the black circle. And that design is the flow of how things there's never 100% one or the other. They all merge into each other, and, they grow and they shrink, and it's just like this whole, I think of some sort of sci-fi movie where there's just like this blob that's just like floating there that just kind of expands and contracts and just changes shape and form. And that's what being grateful is, as well as wanting to grow more. And sometimes we get stuck in our comfort zone, and we might be grateful for that. But if there is a chance that there's something if there's something greater for you out there, stop, the holding of yourself back in that comfort zone. You posted this the other day, and I know this is something that a lot of people have seen. You can be a work in progress, and you can also be a masterpiece at the same time. Just because you're grateful doesn't mean you have to stay where you are. Just because you're grateful doesn't mean you can't grow or expand into the next version of yourself. I don't really like to say the better version of myself. I know it's catchy, it's cliche, a lot of people understand that, but I look at it more of along the lines of a lizard because they're the only ones that I know that do this, that sheds its skin, and they're growing. And, when I become that better version of myself or go to that next stage, when I shed that skin, I am growing, I'm expanding, and that's something that is important to me. But when you're in that comfort zone like you were talking about, there is a time of rest. The Christian version of it is the seventh day, which used to be honored on Sunday. The Mother Earth has that season as well. It's called fall. We're going into where, that change and that hibernation period where we are resting, and we get to take into account the reflection, the time of reflection, and the time of gratitude, and looking at everything that we have and just reflecting and evaluating. That time of rest is very important. You called it a lull. If you're just go all of the time, you're going to burn out if you're not careful. You might not see the signs coming, and the time of rest, when you have that downtime, reflect on what you have, be grateful for what you have, because that's when you're still, that's when your brain starts throwing those ideas at you, and the next steps and things that you can do when it's time for you to come back to that spring season, where you're go again. For me, my best ideas, while they might come in the shower, when I'm in the shower, I might get some of my best TED Talks in the shower, actually. But some of my best ideas come right at the cusp of where I'm asleep and awake at the same time. I know what's going on. I can have these thoughts, and I can change them, and I can morph them. I'm awake, but I'm still kind of asleep at the same time right before I'm waking up. That's when I get some of my best ideas. But I'm in that period of rest, and I'm springing back to being awake and being able to engage in my day. And that's when I get my best ideas. So when you're still, that period of rest is important. It's not necessarily a bad thing, like you said.
No, it's not a bad thing at all. But even when we're doing nothing, our subconscious is doing something. So in my experience, when I have downtime, even if I'm really busy and I have 5 minutes in the middle of a busy day, I take a break mentally. And I look around and I say, wow, look at everything I've accomplished. Or I'll look at my to-do list and I'll go, you know what? I am grateful that I am able to cross some of these things off my list. Even if you are recuperating from an illness or surgery, and I know someone listening who is in that exact situation, you are still doing something. You are healing.
Yeah.
And so often we beat ourselves up for that downtime. I should be doing something. I should be more productive. No, you are doing what you need to do. You are healing. You are kind of in it's a lull between what I call the storms of being busy. And we need that. We all need a break every now and then. The problem comes when we've been doing something and we hit that break time and we talk ourselves out of what we were doing. See, I tried it. I was busy. I was grateful. I tried everything. Now I'm doing nothing, so I'm just going to forget the whole thing. That's where we come into a problem, is we give up. Don't give up. Recognize that if you're doing nothing and you think you should be doing something, really get in touch with yourself. Because most of that conflict is because of social conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
The world is telling us we need to go, but our bodies, that doesn't work for us, who we are. Especially if you're on a spiritual path, you need to understand you have to have that time to incorporate the lessons. And like Lisa said, think up some new ideas or read a different kind of book or, do some journaling. And what I like to do is automatic writing. I don't have an idea of what I'm going to write, and most often my eyes are closed when I'm doing it. Make sure you have a large enough piece of paper, because I have written on my dining room table. Don't do that. It's really hard to remove. But get a big piece of paper, close your eyes, have a pen in your hand, and just let your hand move. And sometimes you'll be really surprised at what you write, because that's coming from your subconscious. Oftentimes It's also coming from your angels and guides. I know someone who has been a teacher for years, and at an age where most teachers are thinking, you know what, I think maybe I should retire. This woman went back to school. She went to nursing school. She's becoming a nurse. So she had a 30-year teaching career, and now she's going to be a nurse. And she told me what happened to her is she had a dream. She wasn't really happy teaching anymore. She was kind of getting burned out. She was thinking of early retirement, and she had a dream that she'd become a nurse. And she said the dream was so appealing to her that it is never too late. It just really isn't. One of the things that we do, especially in our Western culture, is we think there's an age limit for dreaming. There's not. There is no age limit for dreaming. Now, maybe, let's bring some reality into this. Maybe if you're 92 years old, it's not a good time to take up skydiving. Depends on your health. I know somebody in the know. Think about where you are. Be honest with yourself.
Right.
But if something is calling to you, and you are in that period of, you might feel like you're treading water. You're working 40 hours a week, and you're just paying bills, putting, food on the table. Maybe you have a car payment. Maybe you have a mortgage, and you're stressed, and you're living from paycheck to paycheck. And you think that's life. That isn't really life. You were put on this planet to do more than pay bills. So when you're in that period of time where things feel kind of wonky, where you're kind of telling yourself you should be doing something, but you don't know exactly what, go a little bit deeper. Ask yourself, if I could do anything, what would I do? Follow that questioning until something calls to your heart. And if you are grateful for your starting point, and you are grateful for where you're at, it will work out. You have to pay attention to yourself. Pay attention to your inner thoughts. In our society, we are taught that it's all what's outside of us that matters. And that's the reverse of what's true. It's what goes on the inside of you. If you need to work on your self-esteem, if you're one of the probably millions of people with low self-esteem, and you don't think you deserve to make more money, work on your self-esteem first. We try to make a shortcut, and we try to say, well, I'm just going to work another job. That makes your self-esteem worse. So take some time to work on your self-esteem. And when you feel like you deserve better and you're grateful for what you have, it'll start working for you. If you're one of the people, like people who've called me and said, well, I've been thinking positive and I've been writing positive affirmations and I got a second job and I'm still struggling with money, look at your self-esteem. We don't want to look at ourselves, but look at yourself.
It's hard.
It's hard. It is hard.
It's hard. I'm in a situation where I have to talk about myself and I have to put myself in a good light. And that's just something that I've always been a back burner kind of person. I've always been the one in the shadows helping everybody else. I've always been the one that has lifted people up, no matter if they were the bullies or if they were the ones getting bullied. I was always somewhere in between, and it's just always been something that I do. And so now I'm in a situation where I have to tell people how great I am. It's interesting. While I know in my head that I'm an amazing person, it is something else to put it out there, particularly in certain circles where you're not supposed to do things like that. It's vain, or you're conceited, or things along those lines. So, it's okay to take inventory in yourself. And when you start to take inventory in yourself and see what you've overcome, man, that is a very quick boost of confidence right there. It's like an adrenaline rush. Where you're like, you know what? I did that. Or look what else I did. Yep. Why am I playing small? Why am I sitting back in the shadows? Why am I letting people treat me like this? This is nonsense. This is absolute garbage. I have done all of this. I'm a great person. You're allowed to do it. Do it for yourself. Do a session of free writing like Kellie was talking about. Sit back and just have that in mind. I'm going to tell myself how amazing I am, and I'm going to list my accomplishments as I'm doing this free writing, as I'm telling myself how amazing I am. And then sit back and look at it and allow yourself to clean out the insides. Cry. It's okay. Yep. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to release those tears.
Yep. Never stop a tear. We've been taught that crying is weak. It's not. It's the strongest thing you can do.
It is a great cleansing tool.
Yes. Especially when you tell yourself, I am crying because I'm healing. And that was a hard thing for me. Way back when, I was also taught that crying was weak. And I had a teacher who told me, you need to cry. You need to let it out. You're holding in so much pain that you're holding yourself back. And I think that's what so many of us do. And if you're holding yourself back in one area of your life, it affects everything else. So if you're one of those people who was taught not to cry, I want you to use that. Every time a tear falls, I'm crying because I'm healing. And that made it easier for me. Now I don't care anymore. If I burst into tears, that's fine. That's who I am. But I had gone for a very long time with an awful lot of trauma, holding everything in, and it was killing me, literally. And I learned that lesson the hard way. You don't have to, I'm telling you. It's okay to cry. It's okay to let your feelings out. Don't be rude to people. But if you're with someone who is really being, and this happened to me recently, that's why it's in my head. We were in a restaurant, and I was with someone who was rude to the wait staff. And I can't handle that because it's rude, and it's mean, and there's no reason for it. And where in the past I might have either not said anything or screamed, one or the other, I said, they're doing the best they can, and we need to let them do their job. And when a client stopping a waitress in the middle of when she's doing something else to ask her something, it slows them down. And ultimately, instead of getting you served quicker, it gets you served slower. Not because they're trying to get back at you, but simply because you're not letting them do their job. And that's something I want people to think about. My old pet peeve, and I've gotten better at it now, is telemarketers. And I would hang up, usually, but sometimes they would not sound like a telemarketer, and they would talk to me for a while before they made their pitch. And I would get angry with them, and I would tell them exactly what I thought about telemarketers. And one day I was talking to my daughter, and she said, "Why do you do that, Mom? You know what's more fun? Talk to them. Tell them your life story. Ask about their life. Because what you're doing is you're keeping them on the phone, and that is costing that company money. And I went, whoa, I raised a smart kid. And that's kind of what I do now. Not because I really want to talk to telemarketers, but because it's a better use of my time. Now, if I don't have time, I just hang up. But if I do have some time, that's what I do. I engage them. And finally, after 2 or 3 minutes, they hang up on me. And what I've noticed is those phone numbers never call me again. You know, there's a way of getting your point across without being rude and abusive yourself. Right. Try to have fun with it. That's something I learned from my kids. Have fun with it. You don't have to be rude. You can get your point across in other ways. And often when we are first working on our self-esteem, we tend to come across as a little bit abrasive. And that's because we've held in so much for so long. And when we are finally starting to let things out and talk about how we feel, we kind of tend to overdo it a little bit. I know I did. And I know most people I know have done the same thing. Doesn't make you a bad person.
Right.
Just be aware of it. It's just something to be aware of. My hunch is a lot of people listening to this show probably have, at one point or another, suffered with self-esteem, self-confidence, self-love. And I'm telling you, that's where it starts. I know people don't understand a lot of the time how that relates to money, but I promise you it relates to your money. And the more you work on yourself, the more opportunities are going to come your way. And then the more money is going to come your way.
Yes. I know we talked about why we wanted to have a conversation about burning bridges. I love the tangent that we just went on, by the way, and the burning of the bridges. And I mentioned that I blew up the bridge and then put a raft together from the pieces. Apparently I didn't do a good enough job making sure that bridge was not coming back. And I crossed it again. And so now I'm on the other side looking back. I'm on that side of the river looking back going, why did I do this? How do I get back over there? And you know what? I'm not going to go back across that river again. I'm going to walk far, far away, and I'm going to find a different river. I don't know how my analogy was for y'all, but that's the best I can do right now. So, I'm not looking to go back across that river. And it's just something that it's a growth experience. It did afford me the opportunity to leave a situation that was terrible, 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 terrible. It's a little bit better than the last situation, but it's still not in alignment with who I am, what I deserve, or, things along those lines. But we talked about why letting go is so important, and that is because it does block anything that you want to manifest. And it's not all about money. Right now we're in our money series, but it can block that perfect love for you, and it can block, good relationships with your family. It can block you moving to the other side of the world because you just want to go live on the beach somewhere. If you don't let things go, it accumulates. Think about your closet. This is a perfect analogy, and I'm actually working in my closet today. All of those clothes that you don't fit into, the clothes that you don't fit into, they're too big or they're too small. Some of them might have a sentimental value. Take a picture. Keep the picture. Take a picture of you in it and keep the picture. But those things are blocking space in your closet. Is it cluttered? Is it chaos? Do you not have anywhere to put all the things because you got all the things? It's the same way within yourself. And when you don't let go and you're holding on to the trigger that can cause you to be angry or, upset or things along those lines, it is blocking that good stuff that's out there waiting. It's just waiting right on the other side of that door. it wants to come in, but you're not letting it come in.
And I think that's what we all do, especially in the West. I once lived in an area where once a month, everyone in my small area had a giveaway. And you could literally walk down our little cul-de-sac and exchange clothing, dishes, pots and pans. I picked up a rice cooker one time, just all sorts of things. And it was such a joyous thing that community did once a month. And I think we don't do enough of that in our society. You go to other countries and that's way more common, but don't hold on to your past. Someone asked me recently why I had no desire whatsoever to be friends with my ex-husband recently. And I said, because I believe the past should stay there. And if there comes a day where he evolves to where I am, or where I am where he is, and we run into each other and we can meet with mutual respect, which was sadly lacking in our relationship, then maybe I file for divorce because of the way he treats me. And there are many different kinds of abuse in the world. And I was abused. So why in the world would I want a connection of any kind with someone who abused me? And you can say that about previous jobs. You can say that about all sorts of areas in your life. You can even say that about money. If you have been feeling so poorly about yourself that you have tried to buy enough stuff to make yourself happy, you've abused money. I've been there. I think we've all been there at one time or another. That shopping therapy that was such a catchphrase not so long ago. Let's all stop that. If you are in a mindset where you're thinking, I need to buy those new shoes, or I need to buy that new car, or you need to buy anything that you really can't afford, look inside yourself. What feeling am I trying to have through spending money? Most likely, if you're honest with yourself, it's going to be something lacking within you. We have holes in our energy fields when we've been traumatized or abused or just feel bad about ourselves. That creates holes in an energy field. And often we try to spend our way into making ourselves feel whole. So instead of buying something that you really don't need, think about, what can I do right now for me? Maybe I can go for a walk. Maybe I can watch a TV show. Maybe I can, fix a nice something to eat. It doesn't all have to be about money. And our society has taught us that spending money makes you happy. Spending money makes you productive. Spending money makes you valuable. No, it doesn't. It makes you have less money than you had before you spent it. So the next time you want to buy something that you really don't need, now if you need it, I'm not telling you not to spend money. I'm telling you not to spend money foolishly. I'm telling you not to abuse money. If you love money in your bank account, then don't take it out. If you are one of those people, and I used to be one, who thinks, I can go to the store and I can go shopping and I'll feel better, that's really temporary. It's really short term. You'd be better off buying yourself a book on self-love or reading a book you bought a long time ago and you never read it. Even simple things like going outside, going for a walk. You know what I ended up doing when I felt sad? I'd go outside, I'd pick up a rock, and I'd paint it. It's a silly thing. Made me laugh. Made me happy. You have no idea how many painted rocks there are on my property. but there are always options. And what we'd like you to do is maybe choose a different one right now. You know, when you're a multi-bazillionaire, fine, spend it however you want. But for right now, when you're trying to get money coming in, more money coming in than going out, you know, think about how you feel. Think about doing something that doesn't cost you before you spend that money. We are winding down.
Don't use it as therapy.
Right.
Because we're clearly not saying don't ever spend your money. You're allowed to have nice things and whatnot. But, yeah, don't use it to heal yourself.
Yeah. Ask yourself why you want to spend it right now.
Yep.
You know, is this something you can save for? You know, maybe you can put $5 aside every month and save for it. It feels a lot better. You know, I talked about buying a car with cash last week, and I saved for that car. And by the time I could pull the cash out of my bank and pay cash for that car and not have a car payment and yet still have a brand new car, I can't tell you how great that made me feel. I was practically giddy for the first 6 months I drove that car. So a little bit of delayed gratification goes a long way.
Yes.
Closing words, Lisa, for this week.
Thank you all for listening. I know we kind of circled back around, and it was more of like a ball of string than it was a direct conversation. But, you know, it was a good one, and it was something that I needed to hear some of Kellie's words too. And I even needed to hear some of my own, because as I mentioned on the show, I'm in a situation where I need to walk away from it, and I'm working on that. And, you know, it is about the journey along the way, and then you get to that destination, and guess what? You have another journey when you get there. So keep your head up. Reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns about your journey. If you just need some guidance, we can, you know, if we can't help you, we can point you in the right direction. So thank y'all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys, so much for listening. And I just want to say quickly, a lot of our shows circle around, and honestly, I want everyone to understand that your money story is directly related to your spiritual story, your self-esteem story, and everything else in your life. So you guys have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Your home can be more than just a home. It can be your own personal fitness retreat, a place where you break a sweat, break your personal record, or just get a break in the day. Johnson Fitness and Wellness is your partner in creating the perfect home gym. And now, enjoy up to 50% off top-rated treadmills, ellipticals starting at $5.99, and major discounts on strength equipment. Visit a local store or johnsonfitness.com. Your home gym is just a few steps away.